This week in Jamaica Now, get ready to leave. Jamaica's emergency agency warns persons in flood-prone areas to be on the alert. One of the men in the murder of MP Phillip Paulwell's daughter and her mother hopes Jamaicans will one day forgive him.
Well, the note that I have says, I just want to do the right thing.
Clash. Government and opposition lawmakers at odds over the non-sharing of an opinion on Integrity Commission reports.
Why would anyone want to hide the advice that the Speaker is relying on in making a ruling that affects all of us in here?
Having received the advice of the Attorney General, the Speaker makes a ruling, and that ruling is final.
And legendary Jamaican graphic artist Neville Garrick, who did work for Bob Marley, has died. I'm Jovan Johnson, and this is Jamaica Now. Persons living in low-lying or flood-prone areas are being urged to be ready to evacuate in light of the increase in rainfall expected across Jamaica this weekend. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management ODPEM is also advising residents to avoid flooded waterways, areas with damaged roadways, and where possible, places prone to landslides and flooding. The rains are associated with a trough currently located across the southwestern Caribbean Sea. The Meteorological Service of Jamaica forecast cloudy conditions with widespread showers and thunderstorms, which could be heavy at times with occasional gusty winds to affect most parishes, especially central and eastern parishes. It urged fishers and other marine interests to exercise caution as sea conditions will deteriorate in the vicinity of showers, thunderstorms and gusty winds. The government has announced it will be reviewing laws to increase the penalties for persons who spread panic and disrupt public life through hoaxes like empty bomb threats. Approximately 84 institutions, including 74 schools, a hospital and a courthouse, a commercial shopping centre in New Kingston and the Kingston Wharves Limited, reportedly received bomb threats since November 9. National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang said Wednesday the government would have to work with the private and public sectors to deal with this new activity by criminal players.
Of course, we'll have to look at the legislative framework, because currently I'm told the primary legislation we can charge individuals when we find them is on the public mischief. The activities certainly deserve more severe penalties, and we'll have to examine that as we go forward.
Michael Glenford, the man accused of being behind some of the bomb hoaxes, was remanded Tuesday when he appeared before the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court. One of the men who has been convicted for his role in the murder of the infant daughter of opposition MP Phillip Paulwell and her mother says he hopes one day Jamaicans will forgive him. That was contained in a statement that Richard Brown gave his lawyer Rita Allen Brown after he was sentenced on Thursday.
Well, the note that I have says, I just want to do the right thing. I want my lawyer to tell the family of the baby and mother and the Jamaican public that I am very sorry for the loss of their lives. I want my lawyer to also tell my mentor that I'm very sorry for the disappointment. I hope one day everyone will find it possible to forgive me, and he signs his name to it.
Mr. Brown pleaded guilty to the murder and kidnapping of a 27-year-old Tashina Patterson and her 10-month-old daughter Soraya from their home in September. He was sentenced to 1 year and 10 months each on the kidnapping charge and 30 years on each of the murder charges. The sentences will run at the same time, and he will have to serve 20 years before being eligible for parole. Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn says Mr. Brown was the driver who transported the mother and her child, along with the alleged shooter and other persons, to where they were killed in East Kingston. He also accepted part payment from the accused mastermind Leoda Bradshaw. The second man, Roshane Miller, pleaded guilty to 2 counts of conspiracy to kidnap, misprision of a felony and accessory before and after murder. He was sentenced to 2 years and 10 months on each of the conspiracy charges, 1 year and 10 months for misprision of a felony, and 7 years for each of the accessory charges. The DPP said Mr. Miller confessed to participating in the planning of the murders, but she said there was no evidence placing him on the scene of the crimes. The case will continue against Leoda Bradshaw and her cousin, Roland Balfour. Government members in the House of Representatives on Tuesday vigorously opposed the sharing of the Attorney General's legal opinion on how the Parliament should treat reports from the Integrity Commission. They insisted that the document is the prerogative of the Speaker of the House. On November 7, Speaker Juliet Holness ended a practice for the tabling of all Integrity Commission reports soon after they are submitted to Parliament. She said special and annual reports will have to go to the IC's Oversight Committee first and tabled later along with the committee's report. That change was made despite the opinions of the Attorney General's chambers and Parliament's lawyer that the convention was not in breach of any law or parliamentary rule. On Tuesday, opposition MP Julian Robinson demanded the Attorney General's chambers non-binding opinion.
This issue arose where I, as a member, challenged the former Speaker on a ruling she made. She indicated she would seek the advice of the Attorney General on the matter, right? Having sought the opinion of the Attorney General, she didn't do so in a private capacity. She sought it because there was a dispute about how matters of this nature should be dealt with. Now, having made a ruling, which you have, right, you should share with us the opinion of the Attorney General so that we can understand the thinking behind the ruling.
The opinions of the Attorney General are not the opinions to the opposition. They are the opinions to the government. The opinion of the Parliamentary Council. The opinions of the Parliamentary Council are the opinions that can be tabled in the House. You have absolutely no obligation to share the opinion of the government's legal advisor with the opposition.
Opposition leader Mark Golding later questioned what the government was hiding. Acting House Leader and Justice Minister Delroy Rodney insisted the Speaker's ruling was final.
Having received that opinion, the right and transparent thing to do would be to share it with the members of Parliament. The members of Parliament. Everyone here on both sides, whether you're government or opposition, is neither here nor there. It is an opinion that was rendered on an important procedural matter affecting the governance of this country and its Parliament. And we have a right as members of Parliament to know the contents of that opinion and whether or not the reasoning is sound as to how the change has been implemented, as to how these reports are to be treated with. My understanding is that it actually says that the prior convention was sound in law. There was nothing in the law that made it wrong for those reports to be tabled as soon as they come to Parliament. And if that is the case, why are we departing from a sound convention that is in the interest of good governance and transparency? And why would anyone want to hide the advice that the Speaker is relying on in making a ruling that affects all of us in here? It is not good policy. It is not good governance. And I ask you, Madam Speaker, as the umpire of proceedings in this House, to consider the matter in that light and to share the opinion with us, and also to consider whether we should not go back to the convention that has served this country well. Thank you, Madam.
The Speaker can always seek advice, as the Speaker has done in asking for the advice of the Attorney General, and having received the advice of the Attorney General, the Speaker makes a ruling, and that ruling is final. To ask what is in the Attorney General's advice to allow the Speaker to make the advice. Indeed, Madam Speaker, the advice of the Attorney General, the advice of the Attorney General chambers can be easily dismissed by the Speaker. Because, and if you need to learn. You need to learn. Members of the opposition, the Speaker is not always right. The Speaker is not always right, but the ruling is always final.
The police have charged the taxi operator in relation to the deaths of 5 people following a collision on the Bluefields Main Road in Westmoreland on Monday. Delroy Rodney, who was the only survivor from his vehicle, could not be located for almost a day after the incident. He was subsequently arrested and charged, and on Wednesday his attorneys applied for bail. The prosecution is to respond on November 20. The deceased, who were all from Westmoreland, are 15-year-old Lavicia Forrester and her 39-year-old mother, Petrina Wallace. O'Neill Allen and his mother, 65-year-old Angela Samuel, and 54-year-old Janet Thompson. The taxi in which they were all travelling crashed into a white truck. Mr. Rodney, who was driving, was later charged with 5 counts of causing death by dangerous driving. One of Jamaica's largest companies, the NCB Financial Group Limited, this week said a separation agreement with former executives Patrick Hylton and Dennis Cohen will have a material impact on its performance, particularly for the September quarter. A Gleaner report in July noted that $13.8 billion was at the center of negotiations between the financial group and the 2 top executives who had worked for the company for nearly 20 years. In a November 13 statement, NCB said the separation arrangements include cash payments and arrangements for the allotment of shares. The 2 were sent on leave in mid-July and officially left the company on November 13. At the time of their departure, the 2 men shared in annual salaries of $3 billion per year. Now, at the date of this recording, NCB was due to consider a dividend payment to shareholders on November 17. It will be the first since 2021. Jamaican graphic artist and visual designer Kenneth Neville Anthony Garrick, who was most recognized for his award-winning work as art director for Bob Marley, has died. The 73-year-old died surrounded by family on Tuesday night in California in the United States after a very brief fight with cancer. In a reflection, his daughter Naomi said Mr. Garrick was a master storyteller, history keeper, poignant artist, author and speaker. Mr. Garrick's 50-year art career included more than 100 album covers he crafted for legendary reggae artists such as Bob Marley, Jimmy Cliff, Peter Tosh, Bunny Wailer and Burning Spear, among others. He was awarded the Order of Distinction by the Jamaican government in August. Prime Minister Andrew Holness and opposition leader Mark Golding have hailed Mr. Garrick's contribution to Jamaica's culture. Earlier this year, his first album cover for Bob Marley, Rastaman Vibration, was also recognized by Billboard magazine for being number 22 of the best 100 album covers of all time. And that's it for this edition of Jamaica Now, your weekly review of the big news stories. Send us your comments at onlinefeedback@gleanerjm.com. Follow us on X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at Jamaica Gleaner, and on Facebook at Gleaner Jamaica. Like this video on our YouTube page, turn on your notification, and subscribe today. I'm Jovan Johnson, and before we go, let's hear this inspiring story of adoption from the Wilkes family.
We had our first child in 1989. We had plans for 2 or 3, and then we realized that probably would not happen, and so we decided that we would adopt. But in terms of the timing of that, we really just waited, and I certainly just waited until everybody was comfortable, and everybody, meaning Nelsa and Denelle, our daughter, was pretty comfortable with the process, and then we decided to do it.
You figure out, well, working in the system, it would not be so challenging, but no, there was no favoritism at all. I had to go through the process like everyone else. The CDA would have gotten involved is because the process is a legal one. I had to go to court. My 2 fears, medical condition that I don't know about and will surface at a later date. The second one, somehow, somewhere, parent found out and found us and caused a problem. Those were my 2 fears. I don't have those anymore.
I found out quite young that I was adopted, and it was quite a shocker to me because I didn't really know the process or anything, but at the time I just wanted to know who my parents were, but my adopted parents couldn't give me those answers at the time, so it was just disappointment. But since that, it's been seamless, you don't think you're adopted, you don't feel you're adopted,